Hello, friends. Today we're going to be talking about Pluto conjunct Venus in the natal birth chart. Um, what happens when these energies run together for you in your personality? Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, and it represents jealousy, possessiveness, death and rebirth, transformation, power, your deepest fears, sex. So I want to think through it thoroughly. What does Pluto really mean? Why do these things even run together in the same archetype? For example, like really Plutonic people, I'm just gonna side rail for a second. If someone has like Pluto on their sun, a lot of the time they become powerful people. Like politically, they might become famous easily. So why does this planet that rules over like our fears carry so much weight in people? And I think that's because when someone embodies and represents and has a lot of Plutonic energy, other people unconsciously assume that those are people who they can give their power to because they come off, ironically, as very unafraid. If you kind of elicit fear in people, then people give you their power. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that book, like the 25 Laws of Power, or I don't know if that's the right number. It might be like the 23 Laws of Power or something. But there's this invisible underlying nature to Pluto where you elicit this overturn of power in people because they feel like if you're scary and I somewhat fear you, then maybe there's something that you know that I don't know. And that's where Pluto can be really manipulative. But that's really kind of, it's a strange planet, and anyone who's Plutonic in any way will know that the way it feels to be Plutonic is often very different than what people perceive you as if you're Plutonic. Because if you have a placement such as Venus conjunct Pluto, which we're going to get into more detail briefly, then you actually are familiar with a lot of fear. You know what it's like to have all of the deepest aspects of your psyche just kind of brought up and put on blast regularly. So you know what it feels like to be extraordinarily jealous to the point of like wanting to murder. Pluto rules over murder. Deep jealousy, everything that you kind of want to hide, you have no real choice to hide with Pluto because it's going to go down to that stuff you shove down and pull it up to the surface. So it's an alchemizing planet, and for those who carry that energy stamp in their natal charts, have been through very extreme processes mentally and internally, as well as also can manifest it externally with extreme events in life. Because something, whether it's inward and outward or one of the other, is going to come along and it's going to alchemize you to face your greatest fears and surrender. Emphasis, big word on surrender, because you have to let go. The process can only really work if you let go. And if you don't, then you can be one of those Platonic people that rides on the low manifestation where you're kind of like low-key evil. If you do If you're someone who wants to alchemize the energy and allow the process to happen within you and surrender to the pain, surrender to the feelings, then you can become an extremely great leader. Even if it's like in a small scale way, even if it's just among your friend group or something like that, people will admire you and you will be influential. You don't have much choice in the matter. So that's just Pluto in general. I'm trying to describe it because it's such an intense planet. I want to give that description so that we can hopefully kind of like understand the mechanism of Pluto. So if you have it conjunct Venus, Venus is the sweetness of life. It's your style, what you find beautiful, your love nature, your nature in relationships in general, and it's a very sensitive place. It's like your female energy, your inward energy. So if you have Pluto conjuncting that, then you have a very, very intense love nature. So all of that stuff about jealousy and possessiveness is amplified because let's say you get into a relationship, you're going to really want to control your partner because if they go around and are talking to other hotties out there, it's going to trigger the deepest parts of your psyche where you're like, yeah, am I really lovable? Am I lovable or do they want them more? And it's like you might have a burning like anger, fear, rage mechanism going on just from like your partner talking to other people. And that's abusive. You can be abusive if you don't surrender to it and choose to trust. Choose to trust in love. Choose to have honest conversations with people. Choose to allow people to see how afraid it makes you feel and how vulnerable it makes you feel because you don't want to feel vulnerable. You want to feel powerful. You want to feel like the only person in the room that could ever draw the attention and love of someone else is you. You want that power. And it doesn't work like that. There's a lot of hot people in the world. You need to learn to surrender to that and choose to love yourself. It's like if you just don't find a way to love yourself, then you're going to probably be abusive. Sorry, I have to say it like that, but it's just like, it's true. It's a really intense placement. And you signed up for it, so that means you can do it. Have the courage to look into the face of your greatest fears and make friends with them. Make friends with your demons. Demons are way better off being your friends than your enemies. I promise you that. Yeah, so you can be like a murderous person. You can be so scary, and I'm saying this kind of jokingly because if you have this placement, then like you know that you have tendencies to just turn a switch on and become highly intense. But if you're a little further along in your process, then you also know that you're capable of like the deepest love that there is. Pluto is going to take you to the depths. Venus rules over love. You carry the deepest love that there is. These people are probably extremely monogamous. You know, there could be other situations where that changes, but regardless, you're really loyal to the people that you love. And if you have a broken heart, then you're familiar with the most pain of heartbreak that could ever affect a person. It's gonna feel like you might die if you have a broken heart. Letting people really into your heart is absolutely terrifying for these people because you know that you're letting them into the deepest, most sensitive well of vulnerable love that could ever live. Right? Am I being dramatic? No, I'm not being dramatic. Venus, Pluto, people know. And if it's in like a water house, then then it's even worse or better, depending on how you look at it. So yeah, back on track, Meredith. I had a large latte this morning. So like if you have chosen to put years of work into this alchemy process and you want to be a good person and you're tired of seeing yourself snap on people, then you can be someone who masters the art of love, and you can be a very influential person because the energy that you exude, again, people will cling to it like a moth to a flame and be like, I don't know what it is, but I feel like that person has some kind of like interesting, wise wisdom that other people will just kind of naturally respect. And a lot of the time, these people, because Venus is art too, can have extremely like psychic, artistic talents where they channel something just super profound. Yeah, so they can be really, really profound artists. They can be really, really profound friends. Even if you're not their intimate lover, they can transform you through friendship. They can have kind of like a weird following. People will they'll probably rise to a position within their communities where people just know who they are and want to be in close proximity to them because they're kind of like the ones that dictate what's cool in the community, and that's a heavy responsibility. And so again, it's like, I think you signed up for it on some level, but you're not going to be invisible at all. You're highly visible, even though you probably might prefer to be invisible because Pluto is like what's in the dark. But again, there's that dichotomy to Plutonic people where they have so much fear and yet people think that they're scary and they seem like unafraid of anything. They have so much like alchemizing energy, and at the same time they may just not, they just probably because it's innate to the people who have it in their natal birth charts, it's always like a little bit lost on them, like why, like what are they doing to elicit these responses from people? Because they're really not consciously doing it. It's pretty like unconscious with Pluto. But also they do have, as they have all of that like fear and vulnerability around their love nature and these like wildly deep hearts, they are also very courageous people. Like I've seen them sometimes be like doulas where they thrive in environments of like, okay, this is really intense, a baby is coming, like this woman is screaming, there's blood everywhere, like, you know, they have that innate capacity to be in these intense alchemizing spaces. They could be like death doulas, they could be people who like run a funeral home, like it depends on where it is, it depends on what house it's in, it depends on what else it aspects. You could be like an influential speaker. I know a lot of these people. My dad is one of these people, and I feel like it goes about 50-50 with if you choose to be extremely vulnerable and allow yourself to transform into this wise pinnacle of love and power, or if you can't handle it and don't know how to alchemize your feelings and can be pretty manipulative and unable to admit your fears. So sometimes it kind of goes like in the direction of narcissism. You know what I mean? Where with narcissists, like, they don't admit to themselves that they are actually just like terrified of other people's judgment. Like, they come off like so influential and so confident, but really deep down they're just like scared little children. It can manifest that way too. So I don't know, I'm struggling to perfectly articulate that dichotomy, but I'm hoping that it's coming through somewhat clearly how there's a juxtaposition between fear and power. They're two sides of the same coin. And riding that is really a choice that is up to the person who carries this energy stamp. Ultimately, I think the task is to allow yourself to be afraid. Allow yourself to admit that you have fear, because you might not admit that you have fear. You might rise to the occasion in very intense circumstances and come across super angry, super tough, super loud, super violent, volatile. But that is ironically because you have so much fear deep down. So surrender. I've said it already, but take a deep breath. Allow this mighty, mighty force to move through you, and surrender to love, surrender to being vulnerable, surrender to letting people see you for who you really are. Let people see you be weak. Let people see you be wrong. Let people see you be ugly and snotty, and let people love you anyways, because they will. I don't care how absolutely terrible the world is. It's a hellhole down here in many, many ways. But people will love you. You have to trust that. You're worth loving for who you really are. And you have immense love to give. So allow yourself to be open to receiving love from other people back. Don't be afraid. Oh, God. I had to really go in on this one. Yeah. I hope that this serves someone in some way. I hope that I've covered everything about it. And my deeply strong, deeply tender-hearted Venus conjunct Pluto natals, I'm wishing you well today.